Okay, so in the last video, we just kind of finished off. We were just talking about how to pick a particular segment of the market. One very important aspect here is the actual size of the segment. So this section, we're just going to look a little bit about market size and market size estimates. And I'm going to give a little example using Microsoft Excel. So basically, if we're working out how big our market's going to be, we can't be perfect, of course, but we want to be as accurate as possible. And quite often, if we're looking at maybe new markets or existing markets, we will try and estimate market size. It's not going to be perfect, but it will give us some kind of basis for our calculations. So and we're going to be probably segmenting, and working out marketing size based on our data. So this is kind of a quick example of data that we can segment with and calculate market size with. So imagine that we're looking at market American males. We're looking at kind of wealthy American males with in their peak earning years. This is about 14% of the US population. Maybe we're looking at married or unmarried males. And we're also going to look at kind of some behavior. And we're going to look at, what sort of shoes people buy, what sort of suits people buy, just kind of the consumption experience, and to know whether or not we can target this consumer or not. So let's just think about market size. And this is a really simple example. So imagine we're aiming for professionals, age 25 to 44. Maybe I'm a company that's selling AI training to people to say, hey, if you want to keep ahead in your career and not lose your job, you need some AI training. So I'm going to sell you AI training aimed at, marketers, IT analysts, accountants, basically anybody in a professional job. So first, we know the US population. Now, this is a little bit out of date. It's 330 million now. But the US population is 309 million. Age 25 to 44, we've got the data from the census here, and that's 26.6% of this 309 million. So all we do is we multiply 309 million by 0.266, or 26.6%. This leaves us with around 80 million people left. And assume that we have some data that 18% of these people are professionals, multiplied by 0.18, this gives us around 15 million. Now, we could look for a particular metro or city. So imagine we're trying to do a promotion in Las Vegas. There's 580,000 people in Las Vegas. So we do exactly the same thing. We do 580,000 multiplied by the people in our age range, multiplied by the number of professionals, is around 28,000. Now, it's unlikely that Vegas is going to have the same age structure as the overall population, but we're really just looking for kind of rough estimates of market size here. A few things we may want to think of when estimating marketing size. Imagine that we have some current measure of the market. We have current sales per year for sneakers, or current sales per year per consoles. We may want to kind of analyze that information and, use it to potentially estimate market size. And we're going to stay very, very simple here. We can have a whole class in how to forecast business information using, we do some of that in our more advanced analytics classes. But the first thing we'll talk about is a moving average. So moving average is really simple, kind of simple. Say we calculate for 2020, 2021, and 2022, the sales. We add up the sales for those 3 years, divide by 3. Do that for every combination of 3 years, and that's going to be a moving average. So I've got an example here from a kind of online book I utilize for one of my more advanced courses. And you see here that this is actually monthly data. So this is monthly manufacturing data. And the gray line is the actual data. Now you can see that we have the start of the red line, we have 6 data points to the left and 6 data points to the right. So this first calculation is basically the first 12 months and averaged. And we just carry on like this and calculate 12-month averages for each of these points. Now, what you will notice is there's a lot of up down in monthly manufacturing. It could be things like energy prices, maybe a shortage of some components, labor strikes. This data is very, very variable. what a moving average does is it takes a little bit of that noise out of the data and enables us to look for the overall trends. The other thing mentioned in the book is we can potentially fit a curve to the data, for example, regression. Now, you actually covered regression in your previous Business Stats 2 class, which I know you all did very well on. So this is a bit out of date, but it's kind of quite fun. It's the actual predicted passengers over time versus, we've got the date on the x-axis and we've got the number of airline passengers on the y-axis. Now, this is ancient data, but it just shows we've got something that grows over time, airline travel. And what we can do is, we can actually see there's a trend here. As time goes up, the sales go up. So we could kind of plot a line to predict the sales. We'd have to do maybe a moving average, or we'd have to account for seasonality here. You see, for example, you see that these sales, you get a lot more sales in the summer than you do in like the winter or the autumn. So we'd have to maybe account for that, but that's a little bit beyond the scope of this class, building regression models with seasonality. Again, just this idea that we can use past data to help estimate our market size. And the final thing is, these numbers are very kind of, I wouldn't say inaccurate, but they're quite vague. They really are estimates. So quite often we might want to say, for example, what happens if the number of professionals we're targeting at 15% of the population or 20% of the population? How many customers would we have then? That would be what we call a what-if analysis or a sensitivity analysis, and enables us to find the upper and lower bounds in the market. So I'm going to illustrate that with a quick Excel example. Okay, so I got some data here. I actually downloaded it from the US Census. We have the total population, we have the male population, and we have the female population of the US. You see, there's slightly more females than males. And then for each of the overall, the male and the female, we've got a breakdown by age. So for example, 25 to 29, 6.5% of the population is in that age group, 6.7% of the males, and 6.4% of the females. So imagine that we want to actually work out, we're looking at this segment of kind of middle and high school male gamers who play with their friends online. It's a valuable segment. We're just going to focus on male gamers. So we've got this estimate of the male population here, which is about half the overall population. And then we find out, so if I just do E8 and E9, we've got the percentage male and percentage female in these two kind of years. So what we do is we actually add these percentages together and we multiply this percentage by the sum, by the total population. And this gives us the population of males in the ages of 10 to 19, around 22 million. Now, actually, we could have actually just, because we have the data here, we could have just added up these two values, but we don't always have the full population data. And then imagine that of this segment, we think we can get a penetration with developing a new console. We can get a penetration of about 10% of the market. So what we do is we just multiply 10% by this population. Okay, so this gives this number of customers, 2.2 million. Now, imagine that we're going to sell a subscription service for the kind of owners of this console. And we think, we've got the 10% market penetration and we can get $90 a year revenue for our subscription service, which comes with a certain number of games aimed at this segment, comes as part of the subscription. So, I mean, we could get more complicated. We could go accounting style. We could look at incorporated net present value and inflation, but we're just going to assume there's a marketing class. We're just going to assume that we're going to charge $90 a year and how many years. So we would multiply number of customers by our revenue, 90. How many years they're going to be, say, is it going to be over 2 years or 3 years? And then we get the total revenue down here. Now, we can actually do some what-if analyses manually. Let's just say, okay, imagine we think, okay, we can't really charge $90. Maybe we can only charge $80. We'll get 178 million revenue. But maybe we think we could charge $100. And we get 223 million revenue. We could also mess around with the market penetration. We could go 9% rather than 10%. So let's just have a look and do a few different revenue scenarios. So we can go to data in Excel, and data has something called a what if analysis. We'll just do the two simplest one. The first is scenario manager. And I did this before, so I'm just going to delete this. So imagine we're looking at how different market penetrations is going to affect our revenue. So first we're going to do market. This is our base, 10%. And we're going to see what happens if we change B5, which is our actual market penetration. And notice this is 0.1, not 0.1. It's not 10%, it's 0.1. Now, Excel stores percentages underlying as the actual proportion. So here, this is 0.1, which is the equivalent of 10%. Let's just do 5%. Which instead of 0.1 is 0.05. And let's do 15%, which is going to be 0.15. And now what we can do is, we do 10% and show, we can click 5% and we'll see the revenue's gone down to 100 million. We could do 15% and it's gone up to 300 million. So let's go back to 10%. And the second type of what if analysis or sensitivity analysis we can do is goal seek. So imagine that we want to decide, what sort of market penetration do we need? We've been told by our boss we need to get overall revenue of $250 million. So 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And we work out what penetration. So we set, how do we get $250 million by altering the market penetration? Click OK. And basically what it does is it makes this $250 million by altering the market penetration. So we can see that the market penetration is 12% for $250 million. Okay, so let's click it back to default. And that's the sensitivity analysis. Okay, so going back to the slides, we've talked a little bit about sensitivity analysis and we've done an example. We've done what's mentioned on the slides, is that we're looking at different values and we've looked at potential upper and lower bounds for revenue. Here's just another example of using a similar process, marketing size. If we've got a product and we have some statistics as, the proportion of population are aware of our product, how many people will actually try it, and then how many people will start making repeat purchases. And then, how much people spend on the product on average, then we can get kind of a potential market size in dollars. So this is just going through almost like a very simplified version of what we discussed when we discussed the market funnel. And now a few more things. The profitability really depends on the particular segment of the market. Some customers are always going to be more profitable than others. This is why airlines spend a lot of effort on loyalty schemes like Delta Airlines. You've got the credit card, you've got the loyalty miles, in that their higher end customers are the ones that make most of the profits, the ones who will upgrade to business class or first class. These are the very profitable customers. So quite often people will, when we think of a segment, we want to also think about the profitability per customer rather than just the number of customers. And of course, the competition in the market is also very kind of important. For example, I talked about the coffee shops, coffee shops before. And if we were to build a coffee shop, there's a huge demand for coffee shops, but it's a low margin business. There's going to be large chains such as Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, medium-sized regional chains, and also local mom and pop coffee shops. So there is incredibly fierce competition in the market. So just to kind of relate it to this, I got some interesting statistics for you guys about profitability. Start off with the most profitable companies in the world. Most profitable is the Saudi oil company selling the oil. Then we have three tech companies, the big three American tech, Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet. USPS, that's a monopoly, and then various financial services companies in China. So I think we find out the largest, most profitable companies are either tech companies, oil companies, financial services, or like the USPS have some sort of monopoly. And we actually have by segment the profits from the most profitable companies, and then energy, financials, technology, healthcare, and transportation, with energy and financials and technology quite a way ahead of the other sectors. And here I thought this was kind of quite cool statistics. It's just the average profit margin for each segment. Now, obviously, this is the segment as a whole. It's not going to be the same for every single segment. For example, pharma has very high gross profits. It doesn't cost very much to make pills, but they also have to invest a lot in research and development, so the net profit is going to be a lot lower. We can see how tenuous a market hotel and gaming is. A lot of people losing money. The same with green and renewable energy. I guess there's a big focus of investing in that sector, but it's more about growing the businesses rather than making an immediate profit. And you can see, particularly with the growth of the internet, the newspaper business is not that profitable. Margins are low. Okay, so the final thing, and I actually gave you an example, um, because there's basically we've done business to consumer segmentation. We can also do business to business segmentation, where we can look at different businesses. So, say for example, um, I'm selling IT security services to corporations. I could maybe segment my services by sector. I could look at consumer products firms, tech firms by size of the company. I can have certain security solutions for small businesses. We could have $100 a year subscription to offer virus checking and phone support, um, through to more complicated subscriptions for larger companies where I help run their servers and I deal with data recovery. I deal with information security from credit cards. So we can also segment by businesses. I did have a little example that I'm going to show you the census business, but the web page it was up last week, but it seems to be down. Uh, maybe Elon has been messing around in the census here. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, I will try and get a business to business segmentation example at some stage.